Welcome back to another episode of the Uncommon Man podcast. Today we're going to dive deep into some of the controversial topics. We're going to give some outlines of why we think they're bullshit, what our opinion is, and let's be honest, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one. But this is, I think, really important for both the men in our community, but the men outside it as well that are maybe considering things a little bit lost or looking for some clarity around who they are, what they want to step into, and what's going to happen stepping into that in terms of their drive, in terms of their motivation, in terms of their love life, their career, and their business.
Right. So, Nick, we've just learned that there's possibly, thanks to Google, 4 different types of definitions, types of masculinity. Now, I don't want people to get confused straight off the bat. Masculinity and being male are 2 different things, and we are going to clarify those things today because they're very important. But I'm going to let Nick kick things off with this piece about masculinity.
So, as per Google Wikipedia, masculinity is a set of attributes, behaviors, and roles associated with men and boys. Masculinity can be theoretically understood as socially constructed, and there's also evidence that some behaviors considered masculine and influenced by both cultural factors and biological factors. And as Josh mentioned there are evidently 4 types of masculinity: hegemonic, subordinate, complacent, and marginal. And I've never heard of any of those 4 until this moment.
I'm gonna dive straight in. Like that point of like, and it's associated with men and boys. Why is that bullshit straight off the mark? Why is that a crock of shit?
I think it ties into that question, like, what is a man? Like, start there. What is a man? That entire definition, it was very verbose. There's no real answer to that. It's just very out there, very non-specific. And I think in the context of this conversation today, like you said, it's obviously our own personal perspectives. Like, what is a man? So I'll go first with that, and then maybe we can all just like share our perspective on each of these questions. A man for me is, I liken a man to a mountain. I liken a man to an expression of something that is grounded, that is firm, that is very clear within themselves. They know themselves. They express themselves in a way that allows other people to feel safe. They stand for something. They take up space in their own way. And notice, in no way, shape, or form am I looking at very specific functions of this term of man, like breadwinner, like, protector, etc., etc. Yes, those are primal functions. But looking at it from how I see a man in today's world, that's what it looks like when I'm visualizing and seeing a man, like a mountain, like that person. That doesn't mean you have to look like that in stature. That's just what you represent as a man. Harry.
So my definition has changed, and I think this will also highlight the difference between a boy and a man as well. So I used to think being a man was, the hard red type, the alpha, the guy that's always outspoken, that's very confident, that's very, driven, that's always like, when they walk into a room. And, some of those people are borderline, they go beyond confident. They're also like arrogant and a few other things. And some of those people are also very insecure inside, which is something that I've kind of learned as I've grown. But now what I think a man is similar to what you said, Nick. Like, the analogy that I've always used is, and especially since becoming a father, as to what kind of man, what kind of father I want to be, is like the lighthouse in the storm type figure, where there's chaos going around, there's shit going everywhere, but you're stable. You're grounded. You don't fly off the handle. You can see what's happening. You can be cool, calm, collected, make a calculated either input or decision or guidance need be, and you're just there. You're just stable in what you're doing and what you offer to people, not being emotionally reactive to whatever comes your way. And then so the people that are in your circle, they know that they can count on you for that, whether they're your kids or your partner or people in your influence. They know, cool, if shit's going wrong, I can go to him because he's going to be my rock. He's going to be able to level me out and talk some sense into me, but also he's going to be there for me. He's not going to fly off the handle or be unpredictable.
The word that kept on coming up when you were saying that was safe space. And if you look at obviously the masculine and the feminine, the masculine essentially creates that framework that allows this beautiful creative feminine force to just lean in and just be itself. And when you're safe, you allow that to be expressed. And I think on a feeling level, on an energetic level, on just, you can even then see it on a scale of just how you're living and how you're expressing yourself and how you're connecting with your wife or partner or girlfriend or whatever the case may be. You'll start seeing that if you are deeply within your masculine, naturally, there's going to be more light in her eyes. She's going to be more at ease. She's not going to be asking you 30, 40, 50 questions a day. You're going to see it being reflected back to you, that state of calm, cool, collectedness, safety, certainty. Josh?
So what you guys have described to me is a man in his masculine, where I'm like a man, someone with a penis. And then the next level is, are they in their distorted masculine? Are they in their divine masculine? Are they in their divine feminine? Are they in the distorted feminine? And I look at, and that's why that description or definition of the masculine, I was like, it's for boys and men. I'm like, nope.
No.
I'm like, a woman can,
No.
A woman has masculine traits and they're important. A woman has feminine traits and they're important. A man with his penis, he also has feminine traits and masculine traits. And what you guys have described is what I look at is when I see a man in his mature, balanced, divine masculine, however you want to say it. But what we see, I think when society talks about toxic masculinity, men being children or boys, they use all these definitions, and I'm like, what you're talking about is the distortion. When you see a guy who is feeling powerless, doesn't feel good enough, like you would describe him as pathetic, or he feels humiliated, fearful, all these elements, and then all these things come out of him in anger, aggression, violence, and that's distortion. That's the distorted masculine. People are like, oh, we've got, there's a problem with the masculine. I'm like, no, there's a problem with the distorted masculine. The masculine's fantastic. As you said, it's awesome. It provides safety. It provides security. And when you have that, the feminine comes out to play. Wisdom, intuition, vision. That's incredible. So when it comes to like man and woman, I'm like very much lean to biological. And then when it comes to masculine and feminine, I lean to all those things you talked about, the light and the storm, the mountain. And I think, and I'd be really interested in your guys' take on this, is like a man as a physical man, we have a version of it in what we see. Like you talk about the mountain, he's big, he's structurally and physically sound. And we've kind of looked to all those archetypes in the past, how they physically show up, Superman, He-Man, all of those guys, muscular, really big guys. And I think society's taken that and said, okay, that's the masculine. I'm like, no, that's a physical man. What are those traits behind that anyone can choose to have, no matter what their size, whether they're a shaved leg cyclist like myself or a giant bodybuilding guy who's got massive pecs, or a leader at the top of a Fortune 500 company, or a dad at home, stay-at-home dad? What are the aspects in that you guys see that you think aren't described, or that people misinterpret for the problems with the world with the distortion, or the problems with the world with masculinity, or they just lump it all in the problems with the world with men?
It's easy being general, and it's easy just generalizing and saying, oh, this is the general consensus, this is the problem, without being specific, because then you don't have to actually think. The word that came up, which I think all men that I've seen that are in a space of power within themselves, and I use those words specifically because I'm not looking at if this man is sitting and he's a billionaire, or he looks like he's, the wealthiest man in the room or the biggest man in the room. There's like a sense of certainty and presence that these individuals hold, and you can feel it. Some, it's a little bit more, clear. When you step into a room, you can feel like that person is sitting there. Other people, it's just you have a conversation, or there's just something different. And the way that they hold themselves, it's the way that they stand, it's the way that they look. There's a way in which they express and live their lives. And I think, Harry, you touched on it. They're not reactive. They respond. And I've noticed, like, those traits are just so much at the forefront. They're always, I don't want to even say in control. They're just always calm, no matter what's been thrown their way. Like, you've never seen them just throw their hands up. It's okay, like, we'll deal with this. Or kids crying, they're relaxed as they step in, and they're into that space of being a present parent. Or their wife needs something, they're not complaining about the wife. They got like, I'm happy to support and nurture you, or whatever the case may be. It's just how they move through life. It's just like, it literally is like a lighthouse, and they just move, and it's unwavering as they move through that. And I think we've all come across people like that on all walks of life, be it from a principal at school, or a school teacher, to just an average dad that's got, a standard 9 to 5, to an incredible owner of a Forbes 500 company, whatever the case may be. You find that these traits are very similar, and it by no means does the external, validation of those traits mean anything about that person, no matter where they're spaced in their lives. It's just as important, because there's a ripple.
I think you hit one of the biggest buttons on the head right there. Is like, the mature masculine doesn't look for that external validation. He's true to himself and true in himself. So it doesn't matter. Like, Forbes 500, stay-at-home dad. There is no judgment.
No.
Neither matters. That is so important. And I think it leads to the importance of the pedestal and the pit that people often find themselves in. When they put people on a pedestal, they put themselves in a pit. It's like, well, I'm not good enough because of X, Y, Z, and you start moving into the distorted masculine. Harry.
I was going to say, and I'm sure other people have been like this in the past as well. Like, when you put those people on the pedestal, you think, well, I want to be like him. So what does he have? He's got $1 billion in the bank. He can deadlift fucking 300 kilos. He's got this amazing physique. He's got this thing. And they look at the external things that person has and seek to achieve those things, thinking that if I achieve that thing, then I will be like him. I will have the confidence. I'll have the certainty. I'll have the power. I'll have the whatever trait that you find so admirable about that person. And so they seek that external validation or stimulus, right? I've definitely fucking been there. And so it's easy to say, but it's also much harder to do and also scary. But like, when you then flip that, it's like, well, it's nothing to do with those things. As he said, it's you can still be in your masculine. You can still be those things, being a stay-home dad, or you can still be running $1 billion company. You can be either, but it's not because of those traits that make you that way. It's because of who you are and those things internally. Right?
Yes.
So,
Just out of curiosity, so everyone here going through this experience, you're sitting where you are now, you have a clearer idea of what masculinity means to you and what your experience of it is. When you started trying to define that for yourself, how easy was it to pick up and maybe verbalize or have these things modeled to you in a way that's like, oh, that's what they mean, versus what you've just expressed there? It's because right now you look at kids and you look at how they've been brought up, and I see it time and time again, because you spend time with dads, you spend time with other men that maybe have older kids. It's all performance based. It's all external based. They don't look at the worth of the person and the individual. And then essentially what they're doing is they're saying, you are only valuable. And this is where the distortion, I think, as man and masculinity as a whole comes in. You're only valuable when you're fucking successful. You're only valuable when you do this. You're only valuable when you are performing. You're only valuable when you've got this. You're only valuable, and you're only worthy. You're only validated by society when you achieve these unrealistic fucking standards that only a small percentage of people achieve. But that would be impossible if there weren't normal people holding society up as a whole.
But that's a big thing of nice guy syndrome, right? You do things because you want to like you. If I do these things for you, you will like me. You will love me. You will sleep with me. You will employ me. You will do these things. If I hold up this end of the bargain, having these covert contracts, and then you get frustrated and resentful when people don't hold up their end of the bargain. But I did these things for you. Why don't you love me? Why won't you sleep with me? Why didn't I get that promotion? Right?
Transactional. So Here's the thing. So then the bigger question is, and I'm going on a small tangent here, but now it's the thing of, so with masculinity, or how it's been portrayed, is that we only receive love when there's a transaction involved. Ooh, that makes men uncomfortable. So in your mind right now, probably 99% of the people listening have sat with us. You only feel valued, worthy, and loved when you fucking do something and when it's seen. Because then you're deemed as, oh, you're worthy. It's the same fucking principle that when little boys get to a certain age, their parents stop giving them affection to the same degree. Because you're a boy. Now you need to be a man.
And men don't get affection.
How does that work?
So
how
with
does that work?
I want to throw a cat amongst the pigeons, because you've just talked about everything transactional. And what kind of society do we live in? Capitalist, right? We go for more. So you have these people who hate capitalism. What do they associate capitalism with? Men are at the top, patriarchy, masculinity. They just love it. They group it all together. They generalize it. They're like, boom, that's the problem. So men are the problem. Masculinity is the problem. These are all the issues, and that's why we're here. I'm like, no. So this, I think, is one of the most important pieces of the puzzle. And this is where I have a real challenge myself, and what I see happening around. Because calling men out, men don't need more support. I believe that men need more challenge. Because if that was the case, you see something happening down the street that you don't agree with, it doesn't help society, violence, some beating up on someone, thieving, or doing whatever, a man in his masculine, sure of himself, will stop that action from happening. Will speak up. Will say, no, that's not the behavior we accept in this society. So what happens then? That behavior stops. So at the moment, we get this we have these relationships where women are complaining about men complaining about women, everybody complaining about society and capitalism and all these things. And it's like, well, hang on. You're saying it's the men's fault, the masculine's fault, but it's the distortion that's the issue. If you have strong men, what happens to society? People don't step outside the boundaries as much. People stay in line with their community, with their rules, with their structure, with their values. So what happens? Do we all go chasing the Ferrari, the chicks with the big tits and 6 more girlfriends? No, because that's a transactional aspect. That is the distortion. When you're in your true masculine, which is then obviously you get to the true feminine, you value all these aspects that we're talking about. The being, not the doing and the having. You value the being. And that's a massive shift.
The hard part then for the guys that are trying to step into that masculine, that don't have that in, like, as part of their strong core being, you're like, oh, I want to step into that, but they're not quite sure yet. In that situation where they see something in the street, now not only do they have, like, trying to step into that masculine, they now also have to go against human psychology of doing what everybody else is doing. Right? You listen to some of those studies that they did in London about human psychology. They literally had this group of people sit in a freaking room, and there were 5 paid actors and 1 normal person. That was the study. And they were all filling out this test, and out of this room that entered, the door that entered the room, they were pumping smoke into it, like there was a fire, like it was a fuckload of smoke. And the paid actors, of course, sat there, just kept doing their thing, and to see how the other person would react, if they would get up and like, well, fuck you guys, you can die, I'm out of here. They sat there long enough to die from the fumes. Every single person that they studied, because they didn't want to go against the group. They wanted to be the same as everybody else. Right. So now, when you've got all these people that are acting from being a boy, or from the distorted masculine, or from whatever other trait it is, you've now got to overcome being different as well as that change, which is not easy. Right.
That's right. That's what a scary place to come from, where your natural environment is the distorted, where you miss out on all of those. I guess from that position, what do you guys reckon is the biggest action or change somebody can make to make it more comfortable to be in the divine masculine, to be in that power, to be their light, which is it's when you say lighthouse, it's literally to step into the light.
I think it's that whole journey of just coming to terms with yourself, to be honest. We talk a lot about accountability and responsibility and choices. On a surface level, it sounds, that's obvious, but actually looking at it and saying, well, this has meaning. Going a level deeper, there's a book by Don Miguel Ruiz called The 4 Agreements, and I've used that as a guidepost for a lot of men that are sitting in this space and are just looking for direction, essentially. And the 4 agreements are as follows. The first one is to not take anything personally. A lot of men, find that they end up being in a very distorted state because everything feels personal. Everything feels like an attack. But when you're taking things personally, you're also not taking accountability. Everything's, personal, and it's attack on you. The next one is being impeccable with your word. So when you say something, mean it. When you say something, do it. Once upon a time, a handshake, looking someone in the eye and saying like, I will do this, or I agree to this, it meant something. Nowadays, it's like, oh, I forgot that I said that. And that just shows a level of commitment that you have to yourself and to how much you actually trust what you say. The next one is to not make assumptions. And that on its own will stop you from fighting with the world and your partner. So you're assuming that you're worthless. You're assuming that you're not good enough. You're assuming that it's not possible. How is it possible for someone else? It's because they've questioned everything. They've been curious enough. And that thing that you talked about, like that unyielding will to grow, to expand, like the challenge, that's amazing. That's part of your experience as a masculine. And that's part of the journey. You do need struggle. You do need pain, but it's how you look at it. Is it a catalyst or is it a weight? And the last one, and I think that this is where a lot of men who are stuck in that performative culture get stuck. It's always doing your best. Your best. Not the best of what other people are doing. Like, can you say and look yourself in the eye and say, you know, mate, like you've done a great job. Like you gave it all. I know you came dead last in that race, but you trained, you did your best. Your context of your life is different. Whatever the case is, you're not invalidating your experience, but you can look yourself in the eye and say, no, I've done my best here, but I can always do better. I can improve. This is my best now, not my best tomorrow. And I think just as a guiding force to like start this journey towards like deepening your own perspective and understanding of yourself, if you can start applying those 4 rules, your life will get a hell of a lot fucking easier. And you'll have a lot more space to cultivate presence and self-awareness within yourself, because all those principles tie in control, reactivity, choice, responsibility, accountability, and presence.
What about you, Harry?
That's solid.
What do you think's been one of the
I'll tell you, hard to top
things?
that is shit's all over my answer. I wish I'd read that book a few years ago. But what had helped me was like Nick said, that self-evaluation, and then seeing, okay, just taking a general consensus of some of people that do talk about, you know, what it is to be masculine, things like that. What are some of those traits that kind of stand out for me? And for me, it was things like control, being decisive, and certainty was a big one for me. And so even just starting with those two, just doing some self-reflection and looking at kind of my life and the way that I'm carrying myself, the way that I'm representing myself to other people, where am I incongruent with some of those things? So where am I losing control? Where am I being emotionally, like where am I reactive to things that don't warrant that kind of reaction? Where am I not so disciplined where I feel like I should be, or I can be better? And then when it comes to like decisive, this has been a huge one for me. And I think you guys might resonate with this as well, having partners that have run their own business and, you know, spend a lot of their work, or have spent a lot of their working day in that masculine energy, you know, taking charge, making decisions, like running the show. And then they come home and you've been doing the same, running your thing. And then you come home and everyone's tired, everyone's burnt out. Nobody wants to make a decision of what we have for dinner, what we do on the weekend, or anything like that. And so just making decisions in that space has been massive for me. Like, and then the transition from being a nice guy of trying to, when someone asks what I want, trying to guess what I think they want to hear as my answer of saying what I want, or saying, I don't know, I'm hoping to just please the other person. Scrapping that step, just going straight to, cool, this is what we're having for dinner. This is what we're doing on the weekend. Doing that kind of thing. And as you said before, it takes that decision making, that element of her brain gets to kind of switch off. Oh, sweet. Harrison's got it sorted. I don't have to make decisions. I can just follow. I can just be in my feminine. I just come along for the ride. And like you said, she just opens up. You know, like, because I've taken charge, I've taken control. I'm the lighthouse in the storm and looking after everything. So that has been massive for me in shifting from the nice guy syndrome, more of a boy, into where I'm transitioning to now. What's your experience in that, Josh?
Okay, in terms of like going into the masculine and having the most impact on me is really funny, because when you're in the other side, when you're in the distorted or the weakling prince or whatever it is that you want to call it, you don't want this, what I'm about to share, because it shines a light on all the pieces of you that you know are true, but you don't want to admit. So I am like, the things that has had the biggest change in me is environment. But before, I didn't like competition, but technically I wanted to be competitive. I was just worried about being a little bitch and losing. I was like, because I made it personal about myself. Losing meant that I was weak, meant that I wasn't good enough, all those things. So I shied away from going into the big boys pond. I would stay in the little boys pond and be pretty good, you know, all those things. So as soon as I changed my environment, I realized that you're around guys who don't care who you are, don't care how much money you're making, don't care how little amount of money you're making, don't care how fast you run, fast you bike, whatever it is, but they do care about you showing up the best possible way you can. So they call you out when you don't. You know, I'll use running for an example. You're going to run a race, you finish the line, they're like, it was a race, man. Did you give that everything you've got? And you're like, oh, yeah, kind of. They're like, kind of bullshit. And then they just call you out. That's not as fast as you can run. Simple. You didn't give it at all. And suddenly you're around an environment and they're like, rather than taking the piss out of you, they're like, what do you need, man? What do you need to give it your all? What do you need from us? We'll help you. And suddenly you're like, holy shit. Like, these guys just want to see me win. They just want to see me do really, really well. And suddenly getting into that environment changed the whole game for me. And I'm like, sweet, I'm just going to step straight into this and enjoy it. I'll call other people out. I'll make sure they're shining their light and not stepping away from it, because that's what we're doing. Just dimming our light. Don't want to shine too bright. Do all those things. And I was like, for me, environment. And I've got you guys, like, I work in this space every day. We call each other out. Not everybody has this. In fact, probably less than 0.001% of the world has a work environment like we do. And then even less have a work environment like we do, and then get to work with the guys that we do. Our accountability level has to go sky high, because we are doing it day in, day out with other guys, calling them on their stuff, making sure that they are turning up to be the fullest version of themselves. And when they're not, it's our job to step into it, cut through the stuff, be decisive in the masculine, and go, man, what's going on? Sounds like you're being a little bitch. Sounds like that's a story. Sounds like you're not showing up like the version we know you could be. And they know. I'm like, fuck. And then what happens? Man, I'm so thankful for those guys who call me out. So thankful. Environment for me.
And that takes a certain level of maturity, though, to be able to take that from a constructive place, knowing that this person is not trying to be a dick, that this person actually knows that you can be better and is trying to help you. And as you said, not take it personally, like, fuck, what does that guy know? He's just this, he's just that, he doesn't care, or whatever other story you tell yourself as to why you shouldn't listen to that person's feedback. Right?
The first agreement. If anybody wants entertainment, please go to our Facebook page and just look at the comments about how triggered guys are about a video. It's Harrison's doing the video, and it's just comical. It's like these guys like take it so personal, like you have reached through the screen and grabbed them and said, this is you weakling, and this is your problem. You're the biggest thing. That just take it all personally. It's comical. Adds entertainment to my day daily. That's the problem with the world. Not men, the distorted masculine and the distorted feminine, but we haven't even touched on that yet. That's for another day. But don't generalize and chuck it all on men. But also, if you're a man listening to this, step into the divine masculine. We need you. Stronger men, stronger communities. Every time.
What do you think people can do to find out more about that divine masculine, like what that means, how to go about actioning that, stepping into that, dipping their toes into that?
I have a favorite resource, but I think Nick might have something else as well. So I'll let Nick share, and then I'll share what I've used in the past for me as well.
Look, I think we all have these moments in our lives, and it's going to happen naturally, where you are essentially broken down to be rebuilt. And a lot of people get stuck in that narrative that now I'm broken, now I'm messed up, this is too difficult, this is too hard, and maybe they haven't seen a different reality or possibility, molded for them. So look, wherever you are in your life right now, be it yours, I don't want to say struggling, you're being challenged financially, you're being challenged in your relationship, you're being challenged with your body, you may be being challenged with, your purpose and who you believe yourself to be. Don't shy away from those things. Your life is your greatest teacher. Everything is presenting you with an opportunity to dive deeper into yourself and to question and to get curious. Look at it. Lean into it. And the more you lean into it, the more you're going to be leaning into yourself. Sounds paradoxical, but you figure out more things about yourself when you're faced with adversity and you actually face it. And you're like, it's not personal. This is just something that's on my plate that is going to be a stepping stone for me to dive deeper into myself, to enrich my experience, to share with other people. No book can give you that. But if you're just willing and open and receptive to take the learnings and actually look at what you're learning as you're engaging with your life in these moments, honestly, mate, that there's no specific resource that I can point someone towards other than look at your life and look at how you're living.
Go face the hardship.
I had one place that gave me like a nice polarity piece so I could see where I was too much or too little. And that was, I think it's Robert M. Moore or just Robert Moore, King, Lover, Magician, Warrior. And it just walks you through the archetype of the king, the warrior, but it also walks you through of like the distortion of the lower version of those. And it was like, that's where I am. Oh, that's where I see where I'm falling out of I'm in the polarities rather than in the divine in the center. And so that, for my logical brain, it just gave me some aspects. I was like, thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's still a bit of a deep read, but for somebody who needs that, you can literally look up the archetypes in Google and be like, there's the king archetype, and it'll show you the polarities of them. You can look up the divine masculine, and it'll show you the polarities if you need that in your mind.
That's helpful.
Thanks so much. Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on today, guys. I hope that's been helpful for any of the legends out there. If this has been helpful for you, please share it, guys. Literally. The mission is stronger men, strong communities. If we can get this as far and as wide as we possibly can, you will see less bad shit in the streets. You will see greater communities. You will see stronger families. You will see better relationships. This is really the deep, under the cover stuff that's going on that you can implement in your own life. And when you do, you'll be amazed at the stuff that changes. And the stuff that changes in your sex, the stuff that changes in your relationship, the stuff that changes in your family life. Like it is a game changer. And if you want a place where uncommon men hang out, come join us in our group. We'll put the link in the podcast. Come on over, hang out, share this, be part of it. It's an awesome mission. We'll see you there.